Hi, this is a guide for creating what I call a simple light fog in Maya. Now there are a bunch of different ways you can create a light fog, but I found this to be the most straightforward way and it gives me good results. So this image is what we will be creating, and we will be extending the same setup to sort of simulate beams of light underwater. Let's get started. I'm going to delete the existing light, and if I render this out, there are currently no light sources in my scene. So here's point number one. This light fog only works with Maya software renderer and it does not work with the Mental Ray renderer, and so you need to make sure you're using the right renderer. So let's create a light source, and this is important point number two, that this light fog only works with point light or spotlight. I'm going to go with the spotlight for this example, and I'm going to position it appropriately. I'm going to enable depth map shadows for the spotlight, and this is important point number three, that this works only with depth map shadows. It does not work with ray trace shadows. Now to add the light fog, open the light effects folder, and next to the light fog attribute, click on the texture tab. Maya does a couple of things. It adds a volumetric material to your light and adds this cone shape to your light. So let's render what we have. So we're getting the light fog, but as you can see, it is cut off and does not extend all the way to the floor. And if you look at the scene, we can sort of figure this bit out, that the light fog is only rendering within this cone and not outside it. So we need to extend this cone, and there are a couple of things you could do. Simply select it and scale it out. But what I prefer to do is scroll down to the decay regions, enable decay regions, and use the slider under region 3 to extend this cone out, and then disable it, and let's render this. So there you have it. This is the light fog. So we're getting the light fog, but there are a couple of things we could do straight off to improve it. One is the fact that it's just a flat color right from the top to the bottom of this light cone, and the light on this floor has got a very sharp edge. So let's sort of tweak some of the things to improve those areas. So first off, I'm gonna add a decay rate. That way the intensity of the light diminishes over distance. I'm going to increase the intensity, and for the sharp edge I'm going to just make a couple of changes here. So let's render this. Now increasing the intensity has sort of blown out my light fog, and there are a couple of things you could do to improve on that. So one is the fog spread. Now this attribute affects how hard the edges of this cone appear. For the timing, I'm not going to touch that. And there is fog intensity, which sort of affects how dense this fog is. So I'm just going to quickly change this. And let's render it. So there, this looks a lot better already. So this, if you notice, the shadow is a little grainy, and to improve that you need to go to the cone shape, and under the render stats, enable volume sample overrides and just up the volume samples. I'm going to let you fool around with that, because as you increase the volume samples, it sort of also increases the render time. So let's try to improve this look a little further. So if you look, what happens in the real world is that this light fog appears because of particles suspended in the air like dust or smoke, and it's never flat like this. So what you could do to simulate something like that is go to the light fog tab and plug in a texture on the density channel. So I already have a texture, and I'm just going to plug that. So I have prepared a cloud texture, and if I plug it into the density channel and render it out, well, I need to increase the light fog light intensity, and let's render this. So there you go. So you have nice dust or a little bit of a smoke in your light fog. So now let's make this look like it's an underwater scene. For that, you'll need to plug in an appropriate texture into the color channel of your light. And again, I'm just going to increase the intensity a little bit of the fog, and if I render this, there you have it, the beams of light underwater. Now an important point to remember here is that in your texture for this water texture, you need to make sure that you have a good contrast, between the brights and the darks. For this texture, what I have done in the ocean texture, I have increased the wave height and the wave peaking, as you can see out here. Now there is one limitation in this setup. It's the fact that all these beams of light are essentially diverging from one point, and so if you have a large scene, now this is going to so let me just quickly simulate that. If you increase the cone angle, it kind of becomes a little more obvious. As you can see, all these light beams are diverging from a single point. In the real world, that's not how it happens. These light beams would be parallel. So to achieve something like that, what you need to do is move your light source really far away from your scene. That way the diverging lines are not all that obvious. I'm going to take this light and I'm going to make a couple of adjustments. I'm going to reposition it. And I'm going to change this decay and the shape of the light. You'll also need to remember, now since you have moved the light source away, that you need to increase the cone shape. So here's my scene. This is the object that I'm interested in, and I've moved the light source really far away. And if I move to another camera and render this out, so it looks like I need to increase the fog intensity for the light. Let's render it again. That's your underwater scene. If you have an animated texture, then you get a really nice cool looking thing, and here's an example of that. That's the simple light fog in Maya. Hope you found this useful. Cheers.